Euphoria, the most infamous eroge title known for traumatizing unsuspecting victims. Containing everything from scat, gore, BDSM, bodily pillaging, and torture, Euphoria is a vile, repulsive piece of work, unrivaled by a select few. Whether you've watched the hentai adaptation or read the original visual novel, Euphoria undoubtedly changes a person, for they have reached the far deepest parts of the abyss of moral degeneracy. Euphoria is not for the average person. But what if I were to tell you that at the end of this utterly repulsive work full of literal feces contains a beautiful, twisted love story steeped in tragedy? Let's take a look at Euphoria. Not even 10 minutes in, Euphoria is upfront about what type of content it contains, in a shocking start to this death game. Trapped in a room with 6 other women, Keisuke must become an unlocker and select one of the women as a keyhole to perform extreme immoral acts on them in order to escape. Of course, this is met with outrage, which is then met with immediate termination from the game and their life.
Game over.
But despite this horrific act, Keisuke is sexually aroused by the situation, for his dark, destructive urges against women was realized, and he wanted to keep this desire only to himself, if it wasn't for the cunning, sadistic woman standing behind him, Nemu.
そんなあなたが見たいの。悩んで苦しんで。
Nemu is an absolute She takes pleasure in tormenting Keisuke, attempts to blackmail him, and encourages his messed up fantasies, all while whispering seductively in his ear. She's the worst and most chaotic human being, but she's the best girl of the visual novel. And it really all comes down to her sheer presentation. Her aggressive, taunting attitude makes her work, and her voice actor does an amazing job at sounding like a sadistic bastard, with a smile that screams resting face. How she allures and manipulates Keisuke into anger is a feat to see, which makes it arguably more formidable when Keisuke tries to rebel against her in the many possible torturous methods. She very much knows what she's doing, enough to strangle a person. And yet, there's traces of compassion from her, despite the main character defecating in her mouth. Whether this is a result of a domineering mistress taking care of her slave, or a distorted version of love, or something much deeper, is up for debate. For someone seeing through to Keisuke's inner desires, she may very well be the only person who truly understands him, someone who permits and accepts his questionable degeneracy, no matter what. After all, we wouldn't have a phrase like, "please step on me," without such twisted depravities. Then again, I would very much prefer her not to step on him and crush his dick. We can feel those on an instinctual level. But oh, this is just the beginning of this cursed rabbit hole, because it only gets worse from here. Enter Kanae, the childhood friend of Keisuke. If you thought Nemu's scenes were rough to sit through, then Kanae's is horrific from context alone, with having a certain CG that is the pinnacle of nightmare fuel. You see, Nemu creates scenarios in which Keisuke is able to fulfill his urges. Meanwhile, Kanae just lets him do it. In case you haven't guessed it, this is very clearly a problem, and when taken too far with your choices, will take you to Euphoria's alternative brutal ending. Quote, "It's because I love you so much that I want to defile you the most." Really goes to show how tame the adaptation was than what's really in this twisted visual novel. As Keisuke becomes more unhinged, it's nightmarish as he opts for more torturous methods without restraint, and at times treating people like objects rather than people, even sometimes animals. Well, if you can't beat 'em, beat 'em. The writing in Euphoria is notably special here. Remember, you're reading through the eyes of a person who gets sadistic enjoyment out of watching these girls get abused. Everything from whipping to forced bondage to electrocution play to human toilets, self-control is considered. The script heavily describes these scenes with the intent to excite our main character, and his conflicting feelings between raw, bestial lusts and moral common sense pour out here. There's so much problematic horniness that the term post-nut regret can't even begin to describe the amount of guilt and self-loathing this man packs. He goes through phases of being both the abuser and the abused, all designed to fully break his mental and physical sanity, and it's up to the reader to decide if he comes out as a beacon of hope in a cruel reality or a monster indulging in his fantasies. It's actually nicely written and quite interesting to read, while also being extremely graphic and anxiety-inducing tone-wise too. Well, given you're not turned off by the whole premise to begin with, that and the torturous screams of agony. I may have also forgotten the questionable dialogue. Now, if Nemu was deliberately trying to piss me off, then Rika does so instinctively. Her voice annoyed me already, but her personality, wanting people to bend over for her cutesy self, angers me. What's worse is that Euphoria actively encourages this. You can relate to the unfiltered rage through Keisuke at wanting to dunk her head in to stop being an entitled piece of Dependency is a big part of her character, and she barely gets any relief no matter which route you play. Whether she gets treated like a dog, put down like a dog, or fed like one are hardly felt for her. Still, the way Keisuke acts around her when committing these acts, like many of the other girls, is twisted, and Rika voices that confusion in her route. Quote, "Do you love me? Then why are you doing this to me?" And vice versa. At least in Natsuki's case, everyone's treated like a victim in this unfortunate death game, even Keisuke. After all, it is her job as the responsible, glasses-wearing teacher figure to look after her students and their troubles. It's just unfortunate that such a character is left with the most unresolved conclusion. The main story and the true ending is unlocked through reading Nemu's route and then Kanae's route. Rika and Natsuki's routes are playable, but they aren't as important to the main story. However, there's one particular character that has an important part to the story and its background. One whose route is abnormal and mind-boggling. And it all revolves around one particular question. You like cults? Byakuya Rinne is stoic and mysterious, enough to make the main character curious to see what she looks like when she screams. Despite the acts done to her, she claims it's her punishment for her sins that she's committed. In her eyes, her suffering leads to the cleansing of her demons, for suffering through the pain is the act of self-discipline that will lead her to paradise. Red flag, don't stick your dick in crazy. All the reasons why not to fall in love with a crazy girl with religious and emotional baggage. She'll suck the energy right out of you before banishing the demons from her victims. It's always the quiet religious ones that tend to be the wildest. Her route goes from 1 to 100 real fast, with story revelations being just as abrupt as her headaches. Pretty much gave me one too, given its strange leap of faith nature and unsatisfying reasons. Which leads me into my main problem with the actual story. Euphoria, ignoring all the hardcore H scenes, the brutal graphic depictions of its characters, and all of the literal pile of feces, contains good story concepts. The exploration of Keisuke's battle with his inner demons is engaging to read, and the mystery regarding the true nature of the world is a great pivotal plot twist. However, the latter end element is back in info dumped into the last couple of hours of the game in the true ending. It's like saying, congratulations, you got through all the dark edgy content, here's the real story you wanted, and it expects you to accept everything that it's thrown at you. That said, there are some good connections that's established, and it really hammers down on how tragic this whole ordeal is. Nemu's corrupted love, Kanae's blind submission of faith, Rinne's desperate need for salvation, they're all broken by the circumstances, but it gives the impression that some elements appear to come out of left field that make you go, what? Why? How is that even possible? Some details are either left implied or left vague. Some might say it's up for interpretation, but I feel like I'm still missing important key details here and there, and the reasons why. It's strange, because even with all this, Euphoria still made me feel for these complex characters at the end of their routes. At least most of them anyway. Euphoria certainly fulfills its surface level expectations. BDSM including tickling, whipping, and toys, roleplay of various kinds including age gap, animals, and inanimate objects, various hardcore acts, and other deplorable stuff clearly not safe for life. But what most people aren't suspecting is a tragic romance story while also being a hidden sci-fi mystery within its dark nature. I can tell you that the anime adaptation isn't the full story of Euphoria, but rather a taken at liberty, mashed up version of it. However, all of that juicy, precious material is locked behind the last quarter of the game, so you'll have to sit through the shock value content and arguably repetitive sequences. But if you can weather through all of that, you're rewarded with a surprisingly deep tale that goes beyond just a torturous arrow death game, and also having a pretty wholesome true ending. Euphoria gets a 3 out of 5 with a seal of recommendation from me. Follow me on Twitter at TheAugustTale if you are interested.